Watch her, wife. Back up. Put your hands back.
29-year-old Southfield man charged with second-degree murder in the shooting death of a transgender woman.
Victim had no vitals, no pulse, and suffered a single gunshot wound to the right side of the head.
This should be a wake-up call for us all. It's us now, but when we're picked off, you're next. You have a demographic or a population whose lives have no value.
On February 9, 2025, Jamal Broom, a 29-year-old transgender woman from Cleveland, Ohio, was found unresponsive with a gunshot wound to the head in a parking lot in Southfield, Michigan. She was pronounced dead at the scene. Authorities have charged 28-year-old Robert Louis Ridges III of Southfield with second-degree murder, carrying a concealed weapon, and using a firearm during the commission of a felony. Investigations revealed that Ridges had contacted multiple sex workers, including Broom, prior to the incident. He was apprehended approximately 11 hours after the shooting at the MGM Grand Casino in Detroit. What deadly happened that night? Let's see in the video. Before we begin the story, we want to take a moment to extend our heartfelt condolences to the friends, family, and loved ones of Jamal Broom. This devastating loss has left an irreplaceable void in the lives of those who knew and cherished her. This is the tragic story of Jamal Broom, also known as Tiara Broom, a transgender woman who was brutally shot and killed while providing escort services to a closeted man named Robert Ridges. After their sexual encounter, Robert made a shocking decision. He couldn't risk anyone discovering his true sexual orientation. Fearing that Jamal might expose their interaction, he chose to silence her permanently. Witnesses later reported hearing the two arguing before a gunshot rang out, leaving many questions unanswered for the police. Investigators struggled to determine the exact cause of the argument that led Robert to pull the trigger. Jamal Broom, 29, was originally from Cleveland, Ohio. She was born male but embraced her identity as a transgender woman, taking the name Tiara Broom. Becoming a part of the LGBTQ+ community brought her immense happiness, fulfillment, and a sense of belonging. She was known as a down-to-earth person, kind, intelligent, and someone people naturally gravitated toward. Jamal Broom was a determined and independent woman who sought multiple ways to support herself financially. She initially started an OnlyFans account, which provided her with some income. However, she wanted to expand her earnings, so she made the difficult decision to work as an escort. Through this work, she provided companionship and services to clients both in her local area and in different cities. On February 9, 2025, Jamal traveled to Detroit, Michigan for an out-of-town client. Like many other escorts, she advertised her services online, hoping to attract business. That night, she received a call from 28-year-old Robert Ridges. What she didn't know was that before contacting her, Robert had already reached out to 33 other black escorts. He ultimately decided on Jamal, and they arranged a meeting. What happened after they met remains uncertain, but at some point during their time together, Robert realized that Jamal was a transgender woman. Instead of walking away or handling the situation rationally, he became enraged. Whether it was due to personal shame, fear of being exposed, or deep-seated prejudice, Robert saw Jamal as a threat. In a moment of panic and hatred, he made a horrifying decision. He pulled out a gun and shot her. Jamal's body was discovered after someone reported seeing an unresponsive person lying face down in the snow.
29-year-old Tiara Broom, a transgender woman from Ohio, was shot and killed Sunday morning.
By the way, we post true crime stories and strange cases. If this interests you, please consider subscribing to our channel. Your support means a lot and helps us continue sharing this content. When police arrived at the scene, they found her lifeless body with a fatal gunshot wound to the head. Detectives quickly launched an investigation, determined to find out who was responsible for this brutal crime. Through their efforts, they were able to trace the murder back to Robert. A search of his apartment revealed crucial evidence, including the firearm used to kill Jamal. However, by the time authorities pieced everything together, Robert had already left his home. They eventually tracked him down to the MGM Grand Casino in Detroit, where they arrested him.
Put your hands back. I got hands.
What was supposed to be a routine business trip for Jamal turned into a nightmare, one that ultimately cost her life. Police later held a detailed briefing on the case. Her family was left heartbroken by the tragic loss of Jamal. They mourned her deeply, struggling to come to terms with the cruel and senseless nature of her death.
It's really like it got my whole family in like a uproar. Like it's like one of those things, like you don't know what to feel. Like you want to be angry, you want to be sad, you want to cry, you want to scream, like you want to do. It's a big ball of emotion. Like you just want to know why. Like why did you do that? Why do you feel like she deserved for that to happen? You know, and then that way and that magnitude. Being that they caught him, that brought some peace. Um, but it's like it don't take away the pain. Funny, smart, like one of those people that could walk into the darkest room and find some light in it. Doesn't mean that that person was a bad person. She was never a bad person. She's shining a light that's gonna shine forever and ever and ever and ever.
She was not just a victim of violence, she was a beloved daughter, friend, and member of her community taken far too soon. Detective Chief said, "I spoke to Jamal's mother. Obviously, she was emotional after losing a child in such a violent and gruesome manner. I made her promise that I would refer to her daughter by the appropriate pronouns she and her in my remarks." He also said he promised Broom's mother that even though her daughter's job was not legal, it would not be the focus. No matter what line of work Jamal was in, this shouldn't have happened.
Victim had no vitals, no pulse, and suffered a single gunshot wound to the right side of the head. Hate crimes are real, and I'm actually glad you brought that up because this is something that we're still reviewing. Go by the evidence, it suggests that he sought after both black females to include the transgender community. This shouldn't have happened. This shouldn't have happened.
Her family mourned her deeply, grappling with the pain of losing someone they cherished. Jamal had a warm spirit and an infectious energy that drew people to her. She was known for her kindness, intelligence, and ability to uplift those around her. Those who truly knew and loved her are left not only with grief but with an overwhelming sense of injustice. It is imperative that justice is served in this case. The person responsible for this heinous act, Robert Ridges, must be held fully accountable for his actions. If he wished to keep his personal life private, there were countless other ways to handle the situation without resorting to violence. In today's world, there is absolutely no justification for harming someone out of fear, shame, or internal struggles. His decision to take Jamal's life was not only cowardly but also an act of pure hatred, one that has caused irreparable pain. Jamal's absence will be felt deeply by her family, friends, and everyone whose lives she touched. She was a person who deserved love, respect, and the right to live her life without fear. Her death is a reminder of the dangers faced by transgender individuals, especially those working in vulnerable industries. As we remember Jamal, we extend our sincerest condolences to her family and loved ones. We stand with them in their grief, hoping that they find strength and that justice is delivered. No one should ever have to suffer such a fate, and it is our collective responsibility to fight for a world where tragedies like this no longer occur. A 17-year-old high school student from Durham, North Carolina, who was brutally murdered in March 2015. She was last seen leaving school, and her body was later found near an abandoned house with multiple stab wounds. Her ex-boyfriend, 17-year-old Kelton Fox, was arrested and charged with her murder. Investigators found surveillance footage of Fox following Tiara after school, and her blood was discovered on his clothing. Additionally, he left a chilling message on social media before the murder. On March 27, 2015, should have been an exciting day for 17-year-old Tiara Hall, a bright and charismatic high school student from Durham, North Carolina. It was the last day of school before spring break, a time most students looked forward to as a break from exams, assignments, and early morning alarms. Like any other morning, Tiara got ready for school, walked through the halls of Jordan High School, talked with her friends, and made plans for the week ahead. But Tiara never got to enjoy that break. That afternoon, when the final school bell rang, she walked out of Jordan High for the last time. She never made it home. Earlier that morning, Tiara and her mother had a small argument. It was nothing major, just one of those everyday disagreements between a teenager and her parents. By the time Tiara left for school, the tension had already faded. She and her mother even shared a hug before she walked out the door, not realizing that it would be their last goodbye. Throughout the day, Tiara's mother tried to call and text her several times, but there was no response. At first, she assumed that Tiara was either ignoring her messages or still upset about their earlier disagreement. But as the hours passed and there was still no sign of her daughter, that initial annoyance turned into worry, and then into outright panic. By the next morning, her worst fears became a heartbreaking reality. On Saturday, March 28, 2015, a local man and his girlfriend were walking near an abandoned house in Durham when they noticed something unusual. At first, they thought it was just a young woman lying on the ground, maybe sleeping. But when they got closer, the horrifying truth became clear. Tiara was dead. Her body was covered in stab wounds, her lifeless form discarded like she didn't matter. The gruesome scene painted a picture of brutality and rage. Nearby, police discovered her phone case, a school hall pass, and something even more chilling. A message scrawled on the wall in dark, ominous handwriting. King K the Savage. For Tiara's family and friends, the news was devastating. She had been full of life, a young woman with dreams, ambitions, and a future ahead of her. And now, in an instant, all of that was gone. The question that haunted everyone was, who could have done this? And why? Tiara's mother's world shattered the moment she learned the truth. The heartbreak of losing a child in such a violent way is something no parent should ever have to experience. Her voice trembled as she recounted the moment she realized her daughter would never be coming home. And now the search for answers had begun. When 17-year-old Tiara Hall was found brutally murdered, detectives had no immediate suspects. With no clear leads, they had to dig into her life, relationships, and daily interactions to uncover any potential enemies. What they found instead was a young woman full of life, with big dreams and a bright future ahead. Tiara was known for her infectious positivity, natural charisma, and strong ambition. She had plans to study business after high school, hoping to build a successful career. But all of those dreams were cut short, and the reason why led investigators to one person, Kelton Fox. On the surface, Kelton Fox seemed like the ideal boyfriend. He was polite, well-mannered, and respectful, the kind of guy who made a good impression on parents and teachers alike. Even Tiara's mother thought highly of him, remembering how he always shook her hand and spoke with courtesy and respect. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am.
They told me my baby was dead. I could not believe that. I would not believe that. And then I started seeing pictures being posted everywhere of my baby. Nobody's telling me anything. I don't know anything. It's agonizing. I know nothing. Somebody does. And I want them to come forward. Because if it was your family members, you would want the same thing. I just do not understand.
That was Kelton, charming, polite, and seemingly harmless. But beneath that polished exterior, there was a much darker side, one that few people, including Tiara herself, realized until it was too late. By December 2014, Tiara had decided to end her relationship with Kelton. To her, it was a simple decision. He was too clingy and she wanted to move on. Like many teenagers, she was learning what she wanted in a relationship and knew that Kelton wasn't the right fit for her. To most people, a breakup is just part of growing up, something difficult but ultimately normal. But for Kelton, it was more than just heartbreak. His obsession with Tiara ran much deeper than anyone had realized. And soon, that obsession would take a dark and deadly turn. As investigators pored over security footage from Jordan High School, they noticed something alarming. At 12:30 p.m., cameras captured Kelton Fox suddenly snatching Tiara Hall's phone from her hands and sprinting out of the school. Without hesitation, Tiara ran after him, completely unaware that she was walking into a trap. Kelton didn't just run anywhere. He led her toward an abandoned house, an eerie and isolated location where just a day later her lifeless body would be found. About 20 minutes later, at 12:40 p.m., a neighbor's security camera recorded Kelton walking back alone. Tiara was nowhere to be seen. Kelton then re-entered the school, heading straight for the restroom. Observing his movements, detectives noticed something strange. When he went in, his hands were hidden in his sleeves. When he came out, his hands were uncovered. Then, just minutes later, Kelton approached a teacher and asked to leave school, claiming he felt sick. His unsuspecting mother picked him up, completely unaware of the horrific crime he had just committed. Now, investigators had a prime suspect, but they needed solid evidence to directly tie Kelton to Tiara's murder. search of the school restroom revealed traces of blood near the trash can. Forensic testing confirmed the worst: it was Tiara's. Detectives then searched Kelton's home, where they found blood-stained sneakers hidden in his room. A disturbing journal filled with dark, obsessive thoughts about Tiara. Among the most chilling entries, Kelton documented his growing obsession, his jealousy, and his violent fantasies. But the most horrifying discovery? A phrase scrawled across the pages: King K the Savage. The same words spray-painted at the crime scene. Further entries in the journal contained even more disturbing confessions, references to an uncontrollable lust, an obsession with Tiara, and thoughts that had twisted into something deadly. With all this damning evidence, there was no doubt left. Kelton had planned Tiara's murder, fueled by his dangerous fixation. Now it was just a matter of ensuring he would face justice. When confronted by police, Kelton initially denied leaving school that day. But investigators had already seen the surveillance footage. There was no room for lies. With overwhelming evidence against him, Kelton was arrested and charged with Tiara's murder. The news of his arrest sent shockwaves through the community. The idea that someone who had once seemed so respectful and mild-mannered could be capable of such a brutal crime was hard to accept. But behind his polite facade was a deeply disturbed young man whose obsession had turned deadly. More than 3 years after Tiara Hall's tragic murder, her killer, Kelton Fox, finally stood in court in June 2018 to face justice. In a quiet, emotionless voice, Kelton pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. His defense attorneys argued that, because of his young age and mental health struggles, he should receive a lenient sentence. They painted a picture of a troubled teen who made a terrible mistake rather than a calculated murderer. But the prosecution strongly disagreed. Prosecutors laid out a chilling timeline of events. Kelton stole Tiara's phone to lure her toward an abandoned house. He knew she would chase him, leading her straight into his trap. Around this time, Kelton had allegedly discovered that Tiara had moved on with another boy. Consumed by jealousy and rage, he made a horrifying decision: if he couldn't have Tiara, no one could. The evidence pointed not to an impulsive crime, but to a calculated, deliberate act of murder. Despite the brutal nature of the crime, Kelton Fox was sentenced to only 12 to 15 years in prison, with credit for time served. That meant that with good behavior and parole eligibility, he could be released as early as April 2027, just 12 years after killing Tiara. For Tiara's family and friends, the sentence felt like a slap in the face. Tiara had been stolen from her family forever. She had dreams, ambitions, and a bright future, all destroyed in an instant. Yet, the person who took her life might be free in just a few years. The case sparked public outrage, with many questioning, how could such a brutal and calculated murder result in such a light sentence? For Tiara's loved ones, justice was never truly served. While Kelton Fox may one day walk free, the pain of losing Tiara is a life sentence that her family will carry forever. Please subscribe to the channel to stay updated about the future upload. Thank you for watching another video of Truth and Crimes. Share your thoughts about this heartbreaking case in the comments below. We value your input. We dedicate ourselves to delivering accurate and compelling true crime stories using information from reliable sources. Take care, stay safe, and we'll see you soon with another captivating story.